For those of you who don't know me, I'm Leah Pittman, and I've been volunteering in children's and teens religious education here at Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff since early 2014. Before that, I had also volunteered in children's religious education at First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Worth for a year and a half. I was asked to speak today on the principles of religious education. That's a tall order, considering if you go to the Unitarian Universalist Association website, there's not a page labeled Principles of RE. There's a page on our Unitarian Universalist principles, on our sources of faith, and just about everything else under the sun. There's a lot of resources for different ages and aspects of religious education, but no well-defined outline of Principles of RE. So I'll have to draw on my personal experience, and that may be very different from someone else involved in RE. In Unitarian Universalist congregations, religious education tends to be divided into two categories that function fairly independently of one another: adult and not adult. It's easy to think of adult RE in terms of religious exploration more so than education. After all, our third and fourth principles describe the purpose of religious exploration well: acceptance of one another and encouragement of spiritual growth, along with a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. But when it comes to children and teens, we still tend to think more in terms of religious education rather than exploration. After all, how are they to grow into adults who respect each person's path if they haven't learned about different paths and ideas before then? I will assert that both education and exploration are vital to Unitarian Universalists of all ages. While I definitely agree that introducing new ideas, learning our history, asking hard questions, finding out that there aren't always right answers are all important, I first want to talk about how doing all of this through the filter of our principles is difficult. Our current 7 principles were adopted in 1985. Here we are 35 years later. It has been suggested to add an 8th principle, but there hasn't been much talk of dropping any because they withstand the test of time. They continue to be lofty goals, easy to profess, hard to live up to. An easy example of the difficulty of living up to one of our principles is finding the inherent worth and dignity of people who do unspeakable things. But applying these principles to religious education and exploration can also be more difficult than it sounds. For the RE setting involving children and teens, it can be especially difficult to facilitate religious exploration while keeping our principles in mind. Most non-adults are used to being told what to learn, when to learn it, and why learning it is important. Following the same model, most adults working with children and youth are used to playing the part of someone imparting their knowledge to the young people. It can be challenging to both the adults and the non-adults to step away from this passive educational model and into a dynamic exploration model like we use for adult RE. Yet I firmly believe that it is critical to do so. In keeping with our principles, it is not the job of the adult facilitator to tell the young person what should be personally important to their own spiritual path and what should be regarded as more useful in understanding the spiritual paths of others. Why do we send our youth to RE class? Is it to keep them busy while adults do worship service and adult RE? Or is there more to it than that? What purpose does religious exploration hold for adults? Many would consider some of the following as purposes of adult RE: to open our minds, to share our perspectives, to provide or receive comfort in difficult times, to refresh our commitment to our ideals, to renew our spirits. I believe that all these reasons and more should be true of children's and teens RE as well. A congregation should be as committed to the spiritual growth of young people as it is to adults, possibly even more so. To quote Pope Shenouda III of Alexandria, a church without youth is a church without a future. What are some of the ways to approach RE, specifically for young people, that keep our principles in mind? Ensuring that everyone has a chance to share in discussions is of utmost importance. Facilitating dialogue between youth that is respectful and balanced can be challenging. Not only does the adult facilitator need to avoid unduly influencing the youth with their opinion, but statements such as "that's right," "that's wrong," or "that's stupid" can be hard to navigate when coming from other youth. Redirection to the principle that we must all find our own truth is helpful when this occurs. This is also the case when one youth or a small group try to be disruptive. This can arise not only from the desire to be the center of attention, but also as a way to avoid confronting difficult subjects. Especially when dealing with young people, it is important to assume best intentions, discomfort about a subject, rather than worst intentions, trying to create attention for themselves. I often also experience one child or teen who is very excited about their opinion or idea. The tendency to dominate the conversation sometimes needs to be directed back to the principle that everyone deserves a voice. Creating opportunities for that youth to lead all or a portion of a meeting not only channels that energy, but also begins to develop their leadership skills. Assuming that all youngsters want to discuss a certain topic aloud, or that they are all interested in certain activities, can be a pitfall for the adult facilitators in a group of children or teens. I am still surprised that most children and teens I have worked with over the last several years are not very interested in singing or creating skits. Some of my favorite childhood memories of Sunday school involve these activities. Allowing a participant to pass or set out an activity can be difficult for an adult facilitator to accept without judgment, as our tendency is to want to teach. But it is not respectful of the child or teen to make them take part in a discussion or activity that makes them uncomfortable. Enforcing a no phones or computers policy in class or at lock-ins can seem to run contrary to the idea that they are each responsible for their own spiritual growth, especially to the youth involved. However, if allowed, most youth nowadays would choose electronics over participation, leading to mass non-participation and little spiritual dialogue. By not allowing electronics, it helps make the choice to participate easier than the choice not to participate, thereby encouraging youth to step outside their comfort zones. I will now turn to some common elements important to all Unitarian Universalist religious education and exploration programs, regardless of age. Learning our Unitarian Universalist history and the struggles of liberal religious tradition throughout history serves several purposes. We can see that ours is a living tradition, able to grow and evolve with new experiences and discoveries. Historical responses to past challenges can be a source of inspiration and action from which to draw to meet today's issues. Understanding how our principles came about and discovering that every time we contemplate our principles, they can take on deeper meaning and spiritual value, can commit us to the process of growth. We can begin to answer the question of what it is that binds together so many of us, not only in spite of, but also because of our differing ideas about the divine. There are a lot of old white guys in our Unitarian Universalist history, but there are also a great number of not old, not white, not guys. When we include discussions about important figures from every walk of life, religious education becomes more meaningful. Not only can participants more easily relate when they see reflections of themselves, but participants in majority demographics become more open to diversity as well. Finding stories of Unitarian Universalist and social justice heroes that inspire and encourage us, regardless of sex, race, religion of origin, nationality, or orientation, should be intentionally as diverse as possible. Another challenging arena in RE at any age is balancing our respect for science and reason with direct, transcendent experiences of the divine. For example, our humanist companions may find it harder to accept those who find a place for astrology in their religious path. Some may adhere to veganism, while others feel that focusing on eating habits would be time better spent focusing on human social justice issues. A very personal example of this for me was that of my own personal bias against the term magic. All my life, magic had meant wizard-style wand waving, bending the laws of physics, instant changes, fiction. I have had to let go of that connotation because it is a Calvinist-inspired definition bearing little resemblance to what practitioners of magic actually believe magic to be. I am also reminded of experiments where researchers applied electrical stimulation to the temporal lobes of the brain, resulting in many of their subjects reporting to sense a divine presence. Does this mean that direct transcendent experience is just an electrical misfire? Or does it mean that all humans have the capacity to experience the divine directly, but some have not cultivated it? Our respect for each individual's spiritual journey means that we can interpret these things in a way that works best for us, but shouldn't try to convince anyone else that their path is flawed. Many Unitarian Universalist congregations in the last few decades have struggled to find a balance between honoring and studying our Judeo-Christian heritage or shying too far away from it. So many whose religion of origin was modern evangelical Christianity are turned off by the mere mention of Jesus. While the transformation of Christianity by the Apostle Paul and others, especially in recent modern times, is unsavory to many UUs, our heritage is full of the ideas attributed to Jesus, the man from Palestine. My own tidy summation is radical love and acceptance of one another, which is inherent to the formation of our principles. It is definitely possible to spend too much time on the concept of one God all-loving, however, resulting in turning away those who don't interact with the divine as a God at all, those who believe the divine to be represented by more than one God, or those who see the divine in the natural world. Balancing an exploration of other faith traditions can help increase the understanding that truth does not have to come from a single source. Learning about other world religions allows us an opportunity to see common values in all faith traditions. Treating others as we wish to be treated ourselves, the golden rule, shows up in virtually all faiths. Stories of good overcoming evil abound. Every other faith tradition I have studied has included life lessons about helping those less fortunate than ourselves. We are encouraged to share not only our bounty, but also our joys and sorrows. Forgiveness is another universal theme. Faith in goodness, courage, and strength can be seen throughout world religions. In studying earth-centered traditions, our seventh principle is affirmed. In today's disposable, fast-paced world, aspects of these traditions remind us of our commitment and responsibility to our planet and environment. For some, the wonders of the natural world are more profound than any story of supernatural miracles. Close scrutiny of current events through the lenses of our Unitarian Universalist principles, sources of faith, and smooth stones of liberal religion affords us the opportunity to see that prayer is a call to action, not just a plea to the divine. As caught up and bogged down as we can become with personal and social difficulties, we can find renewed hope in the fact that we are not struggling alone. If we need rest, our spiritual families can take up the work. When we have rested, we can take it back up and allow someone else a break. I realize that my experiences are not universal, but I hope that my insights can inspire you all to embrace religious education and exploration as a form of healthy spiritual exercise to deepen your Unitarian Universalist faith. Thank you.